Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Elisa Sklar. I'm the VP of Marketing at GIS Planning, and I am delighted to have two of our co-presenters today are our guests from Neon Cloud Productions. I've got Brian Aiken. Hello, Brian.
Hey, how are you?
Very good, thank you. And I've got Kai Fadley, your partner. Hello, Kai.
Hello.
So we are delighted to have these video experts on hand to talk to us about video for place marketing.
Well, hey, thanks. Hey, first off, thanks for having us here, Elisa. I've gotten to know you guys over the years. It's kind of when you go to all these conferences, you see a lot of people. I always see your guys around, and eventually, I knew we were gonna have to get to know each other and meet each other. So I'm glad that all worked out. Now we're here today. But today, what my goal and purpose in doing this is it's kind of when you're raising a kid. If you can tell them everything you know, and you can save them through going through the pain that you went through, and that's what you intend to do with your children. At least that's what I'm trying to do with mine. Hopefully, it works better than it did with my parents with me. But in similar, we hope to really like give you some ammunition with some questions, and really just when you're going out there and you're doing video marketing, you can really be educated and know, what's good for me. What should I ask? What should I know? What should I what's important to do first, or how should I tell this story, and really just save you a lot of time and and failure. Luckily, we have failed literally hundreds and hundreds of times, and then to finally get good at what we do to figure these things out. So we failed for you. Um, One of the main things is being memorable. Something we found is you always got to be memorable and never forgotten. And we're really big on that here. And Never being forgotten is pretty strong thing to say, but with us, let me mute this here so I can focus. Um, Not necessarily saying, and I get play there, Kai, you have to catch your coworkers on fire, but you want to do things in a way where you're never forgotten. And you got to go to the next one there, Kai. Next, a good example for me that I always give to clients is my name is Brian, and I can guarantee you probably 50% of you on this phone call already have probably already forgot. And I have one of those names. It's not very memorable. Now, Elisa, on the other hand, it's unique, it's different, and it's 10 times cooler than mine. So I will never forget the name. In that you just want to. I can't change my name, but what we can do is you can always focus on making something that is unique and not forgotten. Let me get here to this next slide here. One of the things you also want to focus on is making sure that you're doing something that's relatable. I mean, being memorable is one thing, but you certainly don't want to be rememberable as in, oh, it's these guys or these people or I won't forget them. But you want to do something that's of course relative to the story you're trying to tell. In fact, recently we were at a conference, and if you, I don't know, you can see this pretty well. It's pretty clear. It looks like so. As you can tell, I'm the guy, the good-looking guy on the right-hand side with the blonde hair. Yeah, actually, that's not me. I'm the guy on the left, and this is an economic development conference. I don't know if you ever have any characters there at your conferences like this, or if y'all met me there, seen me there. But one thing is we're never forgotten at the conference. No, again, it's relatable and there's meaning behind this. This particular conference was about being innovative and staying ahead of times. There luckily we have enough people know us that we can kind of poke at them and joke a little bit. But a lot of our friends there and our clients are sometimes behind times when it comes to their video marketing. So we're kind of kidding a bit and yet having some fun at the same time. And we even made a video clip for the conference. But one thing for certain that we will never be forgotten from that conference. So we just don't say what we think is right. We also do what we say here at Neon Cloud. So this year is this is a fancy. I thought it was right to come up with what is place marketing? Well, this is Kai. I think something you understand. Kai is extremely intelligent, and half the time I need a translator for what he's trying to say because he's that level of smart. Me, on the other hand, I like to just really say it how it is. I'm originally from the East Coast, so that's just how we are. Sometimes we just kind of get straight to the point. But for me, what is place marketing in our world? Is, you really want to find a company to tell your story in a way where you're literally touching the souls of people. And so, it's one of those things you watch or a video that you're watching when the hair rises on your arms, and you've really told the story well to touch your soul. But yet you want to communicate your story so clearly that everyone you talk to is a good fit for your community because your story was so accurate, and making sure we're not misleading them, but yet we're telling them a very, very, very clear, good story. Um, so next thing we want to make sure you understand is, it's always sometimes difficult to show your story and not necessarily tell your story. We're big advocates, and you want to make sure that you are showing it, not so much telling, because I've been married for 10 years and 5 days and 6 hours right now, and in that, I've learned in marriage that I really I can't convince my wife to think anything at all, because I've tried for at least their first 4 or 5 years to 10 years, and nobody can really convince you to think anyway. And so you need to tell a story so well that you are having them come up with their own opinions and their own thoughts, not based on what you're forcing them to understand. So we're very visual here, and so part of that is something I don't want to get into too deep because I could talk about it for 5 hours. Is you don't I don't like salesy talk, like best region or beautiful or facts are good for me, but when somebody's using these salesy terms and beautiful parks or whatever it may be, or best location or we don't go for that here. But one way to start off your story, and we feel a lot of these stories, depending on the type of video it is, are very helpful. It's very helpful to start off with a map to tell your story, because a lot of us struggle with a lot of the same thing, believe it or not, just kind of different issues. We have a hard time sometimes telling exactly where we are in relative to certain things. So maps really do a good job. Whether you're trying to draw attention to, hey, we're not that far, we're just an hour away and 3 hours from here, and there's airports here and there, and hey, we have a loop, and this is where the land's at. It's really the beginning of your story in terms of you want to highlight, the key points on your map of what's most important, what you don't want them to forget, something you might reiterate later on in the video, but something that you want to make sure they definitely don't forget. And the thing about people, they're visual. Um, you could tell them all day long you're not that far, you're close to this, or you have these assets, or you're X amount of minutes from a highway or different cities. But if they see it, then they really get it, and it becomes a lot more understandable for them. So we really feel that these maps, are key. I don't know, maybe pull up some examples of what we're seeing right now. So the braggable facts, again, most important things here, that again, in a very unique way. And you notice these maps are similar in a way, but yet they're all very, very, very different in how they're communicating these stories. And again, everybody on this call, are like snowflakes. You all are different, completely unique and different, but yet similar in what you need. But your stories are going to be also, different than what this is. So we'll have clients a lot of times, they'll look at these stories, for example, and they try to fit inside that box of that particular client. And what we really need to do is when you're going down this process, you need to think of your own box and figure out what your unique story is. Kai, you could pop to the next one here. Also, in how else can you show your location? Well, visually, we utilize something called motion graphics, and as you see, they draw your eyes to what you're supposed to see and not away from what you need to see. So they're visually taking your eye to certain things like highways but in this case, very visual. So people need to know like where they're located, what direction is which way, how they're going to access the highways, or where the nearest students are if they're in that certain kind of job market where they need young professionals, engineers, or whatever it may be. This particular story here. And just so you know, of course, it's a little bit choppy and delayed, and on our screen, it's perfectly crystal clear, of course. So this is what happens when you have video and streaming. But this story here, it's a whole full 360 of why we're the perfect location for this particular building, and everything surrounding it. And even if you're in the middle of nowhere, like this is Kilgore, and they want to show you our strategic location. So these buildings compared to these buildings, you want to help them visually see where you are and visually show your story in that way. Um, or whether or not it's a good place to live, or family friendly and so on. You could tell that all visually. And the thing is, when you're making a video, you got to make sure your visual story is in place before your vocal story is in place, or even your motion graphics, anything else. It's got to be telling a story before it even tells a story, if that makes sense. All right, guys, pop on over to the next one. Alyssa, am I making sense so far? So it's funny when you talk on these. At least I'm sorry. You you hear silence, so you have no idea whether or not
No,
anything's making sense. Kai's nodding his head, but I also pay him to do this, so I have no idea.
we're here with you, and I do have to apologize that you're right. GoToWebinar does sometimes make the video staccato. I've seen them, and they're perfectly smooth. So that's just the broadcast.
Well, as long as everybody on here could just assume that it is just stunning and mind-boggling, then we'll be good. But something else I want to really touch on next is you already have what you need, what it takes to tell your story. You've already it's your everyday, your talking points and what your selling points are for this, but to find, good sources, some really good sources actually. You can click on play there. If you've heard of a company called GIS, probably have. They have a product, really cool product. It's called Zoom Prospector. You might have also heard of that. Yeah, and I know one of their clients here, and I'll just pop over to their screen real quick, and hopefully it's following along pretty cleanly here. It's actually the city of Pittsburgh uses them, and see if I think I'll pop on here next. And it so happens to be where I'm from, so that's where I decided to go. That's where I'm from originally. So if my accent sounds funny, for that reason. Um, but on here, you can go to something called available properties, and you can really just search just about anything you want. I mean, if you want to know the color T-shirts of people on Tuesdays, you could probably. I'm kidding, they don't have that, but I mean, they might add that next year. Kai, if you make it small again, because it's kind of cutting off part of the screen there. Do you mind making it small again, Kai? It's cutting off part of the screen here, so I'll make it smaller for a second. Actually, make it big again. That's no better. That's okay. So on here, and let me pause this real quick. What I did basically in Zoom Prospector, I'm able to really pull up really unique details about properties. And in this case, I did a property search because I'm looking for some raw land. I'm a company owner. This is what we're pretending in this case. And but I like rail. Rail access is something I need. So let's go down here and let's find rail access. I choose that. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit search. I'm going to pull up in this area here sites with rail. Here it's going to give me all the information on the sites that I want essentially. And what this would do for us. Let's see if I can fast forward here, Kai. Is it'll give us all the information we need to be able to tell these I guess opportunities that you have available in your communities. And this is where the services that you already have, you've already paid for. This is where a lot of people get this information from. Half the time you already have all your secret sauce. But just some people just don't know. But then the next thing is, and how do you utilize that information? What do you actually put on the screen? A lot of people want to information vomit, for lack of come up with a better word next time, but they just want to give too much information. They want to give way too much. And when you're presenting information to a client, the key with whoever you're working with in this video production process, you want to make sure that they're building something that's not giving all the information to the prospective person to call you, but just enough. You just want to get them excited, get their tongues wet essentially, and get them excited to want to call you. In our case, we make sure that if we're not getting people excited enough to pick the phone and call our clients, then we're just really doing a disservice. But in this case, I mean, I remember they really wanted to add a lot more information here, but the brain can only process so much. And what you have to be careful of putting information on here is that when you give too much, they might buy themselves out or think they're not the right fit for whatever you're talking about or offering on here. They might think, well, in this case, you also got to be careful. They might say, well, we might be maybe something we could do better here is, just 300 development ready acres. Well, somebody might look at this and buy themselves out of this and say, well, we only need 30 acres, and they have 300 development acres. And of course, it's not saying it has to be a 300-acre tract, but you might want to maybe specify here 5 acre to 300-acre plots, or maybe just really just narrow it down. But you have to be very careful with your wording on this. Let me hit play here. But again, Zoom Prospector is a great place, of course, if you have access to it already, to find all that key information. Outside of that, again, it's just the everyday information that you already have your hands on. Pop over here real quick. You can go next, Kai. So we come across this question, and much how we've come up with what to talk about today. It's kind of the things like these are the walls we ran into when we were first starting, in what clients asked us, and we had to learn how to answer them and then understand. Now this is usually the first things we approach clients with and help educating them. So this is similar to a first call with us, because going into it, this you really want to know what you're getting yourself into, and what kind of video techniques. A lot of people come to us and they'll already predetermine what their video technique is, and we're pretty strong-willed in terms of we just want to do what's right for our client at all times, and so we'll be pretty darn honest with them until we kind of you can only fight so much, but they might come to the table and say, well, we want an animated video, or we want an interview video, or we want this. And for example, this just happened. Actually, somebody just came to us and told us we want a video in a certain way, and they said, well, we discovered exactly what they're trying to accomplish, and it just wasn't the right fit. So just to start off, let me just kind of go through some of these different types of videos when you're working on video. You can hit play, Kai. So this is a fully animated video. There's just music behind it. There's no words. This is for an annual. Actually, if you refresh that, guys, in this weird jittery thing. It seems when you buy the most expensive Apple computers that exist, they sometimes try to embarrass you in front of a lot of people. All right. This is just really a video that's completely animated, and it's going to tell a story visually. What these are good for is, and I'll pause here for a second so I can explain what these are good for, is this type of video is really great when you want to control the entire message, when you want to tell people exactly how you're feeling and what you think. You can make anything, you can create anything your brain can think of when it comes to these, and show a story that otherwise would be very, very hard visually to create. In this way, they're able to really tell what they've done this year and accomplished, and it was just seemed as a good fit for them at the time. But again, this is when you want to have an exact story and tell people, have a message, and be very exact with that message. Similar to that, that's a fully 2D animated video. This is a fully 3D animated video. Same kind of thing. This was a client was trying to tell a story that your eye can't see. And so I showed this is a technology company outside of our realm. It's actually through an economic developer that sent us there, but it's just a good way to help you understand. It's like, yeah, this you can't see this because it's kind of space age stuff, and all these things they're creating wafers that go inside of missile launchers and things like that. So you can't really show that. It's usually what your eye is not able to physically see. So in this case, this is a good fit for this client. Next is interviews. Interviews are really amazing. But the thing we want to steer clear of, I'm going to pause it real quick because I can't focus with that thing going here because I want to stop here for a second. With interviews, you want to make sure that I can't stand those interviews when you're watching them and they're it sounds like it's almost you putting the words, if you don't mind pausing that real quick, Kai. It's almost like you're putting the words into the person's mouth, so you're getting to say exactly what they want. You can have agendas and have ideas and thoughts where they need to go, but I'd encourage you not, when you're doing an interview with somebody, not to really forcefully kind of try to get them to verbatim come up with words. For example, before this, Kai was trying to get me to say a certain thing here down. It makes a lot of sense, and it just, because it's Kai's words, it's never going to come out the right way. So, for example, like the definition, it needs to come out my way, which is going to be natural. And you're going to see it's going to be very unnatural when you're filming somebody and you're trying to get them to say something. But what you need to do is more focus on what that person is good for, or what where they can help you in this process. I'll give you an example because it sounds confusing what I'm saying so far, or at least to me. When we're in an interview process, a client will bring us, say, 15 questions, and I always encourage them, even though you think, for example, a particular client might answer 10 of those questions perfect, and the other 5 maybe not so well. I would encourage you still to ask them, for the most part, unless they totally will not be able to answer the question. I'd ask them all the same questions. So sometimes we'll go out and do 5 interviews. Reason being is what we found is that a lot of times you'll think that somebody's going to answer the workforce question excellent, and they might have just did a horrible job, but they answer the transportation question amazing. Whereas, the other guy who was going to answer the transportation question, amazing, he actually answered the workforce question amazing. So you're really going to be surprised a lot in how these people answer the questions and what they're comfortable to talk about, and what's going to be easy for them. And another sample is we had a client once. They're really trying to push hard to get some answers out of some people about this workforce program that they have. Well, a couple of employers weren't as familiar because they haven't been, I guess, partnering as long with this program, and it just wasn't coming across very well. And they're trying to get them to use the initials of the program, which the initials mean nothing to nobody outside of the people that actually created the program. So it came across very unnatural, and so in the end they kind of discovered, and we chatted, and they understood that just it was better just to still ask the question, of course, but then just maybe we would utilize the interview for the other people that were better I guess fitted to answer that question. Let me see here what is next here. This here, you can't see it or hear it, I mean, but what this was a voiceover video. And voiceover video is kind of similar to an animated video, except just with visuals, actual visuals of things that are occurring or happening, and just tell a story. The really neat thing about voice, it's kind of a double-edged sword with a voiceover video. There's something you got to be careful of, and there's something that's amazing about it. Is with a voiceover, at least we do, we have access to a group or network where we'll get maybe 50, 60, 70 applications in, and we'll get to hear their voice and listen through them, and we'll spend the countless hours going through them, and we give 3 options to the client, and they can decide which one's well for them. But when you're choosing a voiceover, you want to keep in mind who you're trying to affect. What age groups, what kind of people are you trying to affect? What may they sound like? What would they enjoy listening to? What kind of voice could they relate to? So young, and this with this voiceover in this video in particular, it was a younger, more diverse, educated voice sounding person. And these voiceover talents, keyword talent, because they can really make their voice sound however they want. It's actually kind of scary how different they can, or how much they could change their voice. But this way you can affect and go directly after a certain demographic, and with the voice. So you're with videos, in all, we're subconsciously trying to control the minds of people, which sounds scary, but you're really just trying to control their minds to help them make the right decision and do the right thing, if what you have is right for them. And that's part of that, the voice. Now, the double-edged sword of that is they also might completely be turned off from the voice. In fact, my voice, for example, I can't stand hearing my voice. It makes me ill to my stomach. When we listen back to calls like this to better perform and do better and give a better presentation for people like yourselves, I actually just have my employees listen to it and then give me notes on what I can do better and tear me apart. I'd much rather that than hear my own voice. I have no idea why. So you have to also be careful because you might like the voice, but the other 50% of the people might not. So it's also could be a dangerous thing. But the voiceover is also very good when you have too much information to give, because you can really say a lot with that. The last thing here is with purely motion graphics. And again, motion graphics, there's no voice on any of these videos, but it's drawing your eyes to what you need to see. It's giving you additional information, which is adding value to the video. See like fish there, the birds, and it's very choppy, but I promise you it's really high tech and awesome on our end. You can hit replay, okay? Or not replay, but if you back up a little bit there. Yeah. But again, with these, you have to be very punctual and factual and straight to the point. And keep in mind, these types of videos, when you're creating these types of videos, it's usually a quicker clip. You want to keep it long enough for you to be able to read it. And in this case, you're probably not be able to read it too well because it's so choppy and it's in and out before it actually really is on our screen. But but yet with enough information where it's not too much information. If it becomes too much information, we always encourage people to split it into 2 separate shots. But with this type of video, they're really neat because when you add these motion graphics, you might have a 1-minute video, but you're going to come out with about 2 to 3 minutes worth of information. So in other words, you would have to create an interview video or a voiceover video 2 to 3 minutes long to accomplish the same thing that you could accomplish with a video with motion graphics, because it's adding so much value and content to the actual story. And you see that race car in there. I actually got to ride inside that race car with race car driver drifting. It was probably one of the best days of my life, except the day I got married, of course. Yeah, you could go next, Kai. Kai, am I making sense so far, Kai? Absolutely. Okay. There's zero voices on here, and it's making me nervous, Kai. All right. Um, so it's funny. Many years ago when we first started this company, we made a video for somebody, and they looked at me and in their country voice. We're in Texas, so people sometimes speak country here. And he said, Brian, we like the video, but now what do we do with it? And it reminds me a lot of I think it was it 1992? I don't remember. I'm dating. I'm old, but I think it was 1992 when I got my first computer, and I got it home. I was more excited than you could imagine. I'll never forget this day. And I ran into my bedroom at my folks' house, and I plugged it in and got it all hooked up, and then I put in that CD-ROM for AOL. Remember the little running guy? And it went boop 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 boop. Got it all plugged up, and then I was staring at it, and I'm like, now what do I do? Literally had no idea what to do with it, and I just literally wasted my money. Um, and that's something you really need to take with this whole presentation is uh, you can have the coolest video in the world. You can find somebody out there that can make you, a Picasso or the best video that you could ever come across in the world. But if you're not using it, you're not getting the benefit out of it. You're not getting ROI. If you don't know what to do with it, it's just as good as anything else that's useless in life. So that's a key thing. Make sure you have a very strategic plan on how you're going to deliver this thing and use the heck out of it. You go ahead, Kai. So we just simply listed off some things. Now everybody's going to be different. In talking to a lot of communities, no, I'll go back. In talking to a lot of communities, they're all different. Again, y'all are different. Y'all like snowflakes. You're all different, but yet similar. And that at each platform you might utilize or might not use it that much. Maybe some things are meant. I had one client. She told me that, well, Facebook we use for more of like public announcements. Instagram we use Instagram and Twitter we use for a spy tool to find out like what's happening. When she said I actually found out that an Academy Sports was closing in our neighborhood before that I even found out that Academy Sports was closing through Twitter. Instagram they find out when kids are coming home from school or when events are happening they didn't know about. And then LinkedIn, of course, for other different announcements. But so we're not saying that you use all of these, but the thing is, you got to use them to put them out there because you never know with virality and things getting out there. It's just getting your word out there. You never know when it's going to get into the right hands of the right person. In fact, that's how we got founded. We posted a video. A video went viral. And I was a banker for 10 years, and then 1 month later, I quit my job cold turkey with no money in the bank, and it was all because I put a video out there, and the right person found it. Who was actually an economic developer, and then that's kind of how we got into this interesting niche of economic development. But what other places can we use it? Well, a really good way that I've seen them used is before an annual meeting, really to talk about some key points. And a lot of times these videos are going to back up what you're about to talk about anyways. And it's kind of again getting those key points in their brain for you to reiterate on later. I've seen that time and time again, and really just help build that emotion to bring home so much more what you're about to say and what you're about to tell them. Conferences, we have a client. He does a really good job at utilizing his video, but getting in front of people first. When you call somebody, you have gatekeepers and all kinds of other things that make it difficult to find people. But when he goes to ICSC, I'm sure you're all familiar with that in Vegas, and if you're not, good, because when you go, make sure you stretch out, you take real comfy shoes because it's a long one. But he's last year I know he told me he set 33 pre-appointments, which he beat me, so that's pretty good. But by utilizing this video, he emailed out to people to get their interest, even pick up the phone and talk to them, or even to interest them in having a conversation to set up an appointment. In the end, he's just trying to get an appointment to meet out there with them. And then when he actually goes to the conference, he'll have this there and he'll hold it on his iPad. I've watched him do this, and he's talking through the points and pointing out the places. This is where our business park is, and the highway's right here. And the video is kind of explaining it too, because when you're at conferences, those types of conferences, you want to be respectful of their time, and you only have a few minutes anyways of their time. But it really helps with like the agenda of his meeting to talk about these key points and what might be more important to that client or person. He could skip right to the part that's maybe good for them. But it's been really good for that. Email. The power of staying in front of all those emails you got over the years. I mean, email marketing is one of the most powerful tools on planet Earth. Once you really figure out how to use that, and then again, when you're selling somebody on something, it's what I mean to that. I put sales as more of like a follow up with it as a reminder. How we utilize it. If you ever get on a phone call with us, you're gonna laugh when this happens. It's already happened to Lisa, where say, hey, Lisa, are you in front of your computer right now? Assumingly that she is, and knowing that she is. Great. Here, do me a favor. Click on this link I just sent you, and let me know when you get this pulled up. What do you see there? And I quiz them just to make sure they're not lying. Just make sure they're actually pulling up the video and it's there. Great. Hey, do you see this? And I'll educate them through the video and wow them with that way. And then, of course, with follow-up. Uh, and then websites. I thought this was a no-brainer. I really did. And some people just think it's not fit. I don't. The thing that we've realized is people don't watch websites; they watch videos. And you know, imagine having a video that is educational, kind of giving you the information you have on the website. Imagine keeping them on there a little bit longer. Why wouldn't you want to do that? So statistically, I think we all know that they're going to spend more time on your website if you have a video on there. So I had a client. I said, I thought this was a no-brainer, but I had a client. I say had because I fired them. No, I'm joking. I didn't fire them. But they didn't. They're great people and they just hired us again. But they just won't. They refuse to put their video on the website. And I'll be honest with you. I talk to all my clients and find out what they're doing and the traction they're getting from their videos, and I know they're getting a lot less. And it's not good. One last thing, I want to talk about these videos and pre-meetings. Of course, talked about that a bit. And can I go to the next one? I don't think there's anything else here. Is I just got off a call with a client yesterday, and she was telling me, Brian, I just want to let you know our video has been so helpful, and it's still blowing up in the community. I've taken it to different meetings, and I've given it to all the brokers in town, and all the brokers in town are using it and getting the message out. I'm seeing it everywhere. Even our hospital is doing it for recruitment, to hire people here because it shows the community. They're also using other companies using it for retention. Just keeping people reminded of like what's going on in the community and what's happening, and just some really cool things. And it was really cool to hear these different unique ways how she's utilizing it. So that's some other ways you can use it. Last thing, real quickly, how do you choose a video production company? That's something I think that's key. You need to that. You know what? Kai must have put that in there. That's a picture of me. That shouldn't be in there, Kai. That's just Kai. You go to the next slide there. Um, uh, so number one, check the work. What do I mean by that? How can you relate with this? If you pulled up to a guy that was working out of his garage, and he's fixing Hondas, but you've never seen him fix a Honda before, and there's no cars in there he's working on, but he said he specializes in Hondas, but there's no proof backing up. I mean, would you believe him? My point is, you're going to see people with video work out there, but if you're asking for a unique certain thing, you really don't think that they can do anything. Because I promise you, we had to suck a long time before we got good at making videos with motion graphics. I mean, it wasn't that good, and we had to suck before we got good. And luckily, we were just horrible for a long enough time where we did. So, just saying that jokingly, but that's the truth. That's how you learn. You learn by failure, and you want to make sure that if you're asking for something particular, even though they're a video production company, you want to make sure they've done what you're asking for. Project management. It's a good question to ask them how they manage your project, because it's going to give you a good idea of how much time is going to be needed by you. How much involvement are you going to have to put in this process, because it's going to tell you how organized they are. And ask them about, with that, ask them about their process. Just saying, what do you use as your project management? How, and how is your process? Are really good key questions, because if they stumble over that, I could guarantee you it's not going to be too much fun for you. You want to get with somebody who, find a company who it's going to be an easy process, because the thing about this group of people and everybody on this phone, you are some of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. You're the most passionate human beings I ever met in my life, and you don't got time to be slowed down by bad processes. Um, the client involvement part, you want to ask them, what key points are we going to get involved? Our goal is always to talk to our clients as little as possible, because we're too busy, you're too busy, but we want to have a structure set up where you don't get you involved that much. However, you should want to be able to get involved, and we want our people to be involved because your opinion matters more than anybody's, obviously. And I've worked with companies on big shoots, with a travel company, and we just filmed 6 countries the other day. So what we're filming cities and countries, and we were filming a country, and they had the client, the visitors bureau from that country with us. They just didn't like the client there. It's you got to be there. You got to be involved. You got to know what's going on. You need your opinion. So make sure they're okay with the client involvement. But then when I'm on the flip side, ask them about the client involvement. Like how much. It's kind of like when you're making a website, you realize you're gonna have to write all that stuff, or if there's a script, am I gonna have to write it? How much do they want you involved to see how much is it's going to be either taken off your plate or put on your plate. And the last thing is hours of revisions. I've seen people say it's unlimited before, and that should typically scare you because you probably need it, you know. But find that out, because nobody's gonna hit it right on the head. There's a few times people call us back and say, "Yep, it's great, send it to us," and it still shocks me when they do that. I encourage them to please be honest with me, because honestly, it's just going to say the saying at the bottom, but it's kind of corny if I say that because it's already written there. But I literally can't sleep at night if people are not content. It will drive me up. I won't sleep, and it's happened before because I didn't have answers whether or not this person was actually satisfied. And so make sure that you have an understanding of how many revisions you can have, and then after that, what it's going to cost at that point. And this is to avoid you from getting taken advantage of, basically. And I think that's it. I ran out of information. That's all the information I have.
That takes us to the end then. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Brian. That was amazing. Kai, we appreciate your supportive clicking of websites and moving us back and forth into the different videos. Before we take questions, and I will encourage people to put their questions in the field on the right-hand side, I just wanted to say that maybe we can include the links to some of these videos in the follow-up email that I'm going to be sending everyone, with a link to the on-demand video. If you want to send those to me, Brian and Kai, we can, that way people can go and watch those example videos on their own in
Right.
full.
Yeah. No, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
So we have one question, which is there any way that people can start off using video and place marketing just with their own iPhones? Like, is that something you would advise people to do?
Heck yeah, absolutely. Please do. Yeah, we have a sample here. We have set up for another talk, and we thought about bringing it on here, but I'm really glad you brought that up, because we have a post we've just created about that same thing, where we can make a very professional looking video with just an iPhone and a microphone. Depending on what you want to do, if you're doing an interview, the main thing is anytime you're making a video, just understand, as steady as it looks in your hand, as steady as it looks on your camera, it's not steady. Just put it on a tripod. But you can, some of the keys to video, the iPhones are great, is a lot of lighting. If you can get some natural lighting, sit next to a window if it's that kind of video, if you're interviewing somebody, and audio. So lighting and audio are the two things that are going to be key. And so in terms of audio, if it's an interview, like on this video, we're sending people to a link to where they could find a $65 microphone that they could attach directly to your phone and have professional audio. Also, if you're filming other things, if you're filming areas or business parks or retail areas or whatever it may be, office spaces in the area, or housing, just do yourself a favor. Spend the $200 it costs to get a stabilizer for your phone. They're called gimbals or stabilizers. 3-axis gimbals might be another word we could search. And what we can do too is, in this email, so we'll also leave some links for some of these things that we're talking about right now, the microphone, and then also the the
Right.
stabilizer. You know,
Yep.
it is so worth the money to buy it because we use all these toys too. We just have real fancy ones. And I always tease people. I say, we have all these toys so we can make our stuff look amazing. Because it starts out not, we make ourselves look good at what we do. Just kind of joking. But we use the same things, but just on a professional level. But yes, you can, and I definitely encourage it. It's about the story, the pacing. If you want, you can find a bunch of our videos, and like we all learned, I'll just teach you the tricks. Is we steal, and what we mean by that is ideas. And you can watch my videos and watch the pacing of it, and see how long they are. Maybe the different camera angles that we chose, or how we filmed it, and just replicate that, but where you're at. So I'm all for you doing that on your own, and taking what we've done and learned and just kind of fast forwarding. So hopefully that answered it.
Yeah, that's some good advice. I think those links would be great. I'd also want to
Yeah.
ask people, this is one of the things that drives me crazy with people who produce their own video without necessarily an expertise, is to turn your phone so it's shooting the video horizontally, and
Oh yeah.
vertically shot video on phones. That drives me
Oh yeah.
insane.
Yeah,
Just a
I thought
small
that was
thing.
a no-brainer too, but I guess
You thought that was
forgot
a
about that.
no-brainer. Don't
Wait,
assume.
what?
Don't
Yeah,
assume.
go ahead. Um,
No, I was just
yeah,
going to say those things make a big difference.
yeah, and just to reiterate what she's saying is, if you hold your phone up and down, if you hit record, even if you turn it sideways after that point, it's still going to be filmed up and down. So it's only taking up a very small portion of the screen, and I see that actually
Right.
all the time, and it does drive me really insane, especially from parents. You usually do it to a kid, but especially when you're doing it in a professional setting, just turn your phone sideways. A lot of phones, I know, especially the iPhone, we have it's mandated here. We have to use Apple here. I'm joking, but we just have it. But if you go into your settings too, under your general settings, you're gonna find where you can change the quality to either 4K or something higher. If you're doing an interview, maybe 4K is good, but it's not really necessary. You typically will need more lighting for 4K. Um, if you're doing an interview, it's good because you could punch in and out of the video when you're editing it. But in general, I would probably keep it on 60 frames a second, because it's going to make your videoing a lot more natural. I won't say natural looking, but it's going to make what you're doing look better than it should, because it'll be smoother. So I would turn on 1080 by 60 frames a second, in your settings there.
Oh, that's really good advice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, all these little tips and tricks. I mean, it is possible, I suppose, for people to produce them on their own. I have seen some good examples of those from time to time, but definitely, as you say, it's useful to turn to the experts if you're trying to do anything more sophisticated. So it was useful to get all the different examples of the kinds of videos. It hadn't occurred to me that there's the animation, and then there's the animation on top of the video, and then there were interviews. There's so many different ways that you could do this. And as I was watching them, I was thinking how useful it would be to include short videos if you're sending a proposal in regards to an RFP, for example, or if you want to show specific properties that you could include video along with them. It really helps animate the proposal.
Yeah, absolutely. People. There's products out there, even other ways to deliver it too, for like proposals, like digital brochures, for example, where it's literally a brochure, like a typical brochure. It's been around since like the 40s, but you open it and it can play videos, and they have them as complex where you can hit different buttons to be able to access different videos. So you can have 3, 4 videos on there, and increase volume, lower volume. It's kind of like those annoying Christmas cards you open when you start singing like Merry Christmas or something, but it's not annoying. It's a video instead. It's an educational video. I've even seen
Yeah.
people with these chips where you can take a video and you can put it on. It looks like a USB, and you plug it in a USB drive. It will actually take you directly to your website where the video is. Because the key is you always want to get them to your website if you can, to get more information and to contact you
Absolutely.
or to fill out a sheet. So it's always about driving them there if you can. But yeah, there's a
That's
million
really
different ways.
key.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another question we got from Mike is, what video editing software could you recommend for beginners?
The difference with that, and before anybody else pops off, please ask questions, get them out of the way, because I want you to really be fulfilled by this and want you to answer anything you might have. So you can't scare me with any question. But with that, I always actually send people directly to my editing software, and and this is why, and it's very important. I have I had a good friend of mine, a client, and I met him very beginning of getting in this, and he asked me these same questions, and I told him because he wanted to start doing his own videos. I said, that's awesome. But I said, if you're going to start doing them, you need to start using the software that we use. And it's really not more complex. But the key is if he ever wanted to, like, for example, make his own video, edit it, but he wanted somebody like us to add motion graphics or add animations or add lower thirds or things that he didn't have the capabilities of doing and he wanted somebody to pay to do, he literally can just send us the files and we could open it on our computer just as he sees it on his computer. So yeah, and that software is called Premiere. It's Adobe Premiere, and I think it's like $19 a month. It's on a subscription basis, so it's extremely affordable. But there's other ones out there, of course, like Apple's, Final Cut, but they're all very similar. But I always encourage you to use the one that professionals are using out there, because if you ever need to collaborate with them on something, and I've had this happen several times where a client wanted me to add just a piece of it, and they've already had the video edited, and it's much better for us to edit right in the software as opposed to like editing on exported video, so you don't lose quality. Yeah, Adobe Premiere is what it's called.
Oh, that's great. And they're much more intuitive than they used to be, aren't they? I mean, there's a lot more drag and drop, and the support on those things is generally quite good.
Yeah, YouTube has taught me more than my college degree and all 12 years of school before. So yeah, there's a lot of places you could find information on that, how to do that. Yeah, it's super easy too, super simple.
So we have another question: is there an optimal length for promotional video for place marketing? Is 3 minutes too long?
Wow, you guys are really hitting some questions and realizing some really key points that I missed. So thank you. Yes, and yes. Depending on the depending on the message, of course. And really, it's one of those things you feel, but the shorter the better is the key. Okay, now optimal statistically wise, how long are people to watch a video? Minute and a half. The shorter the better, though. If you could, I always tell my client when we're giving quotes, we always quote. It's really weird / funny / it's my personality once you get to know me. But we always say from 45. We say an interview video, so 45 seconds to a minute and a half ish. And they're like, ish? Why? I said, well, if it ends up being a minute 34 or 34 or minute 45, then that's what it is. And the point is as long as you're continually adding value to the video and you're not being repetitive and you're not being too long, that's the key, is adding value, right? So once you stop adding value, that's when people click out. And sometimes for you and the people that are on this call, I know it's really hard for you to watch your own video and cut things out, because I do it all day to mine, because we make a lot of video for ourselves. And it's like watching your children's video. When you're watching them, they're just so cute and you can watch them all day. Well, nobody wants to see your kid for that long, and it's really hard. My daughter, she's 9 and she's a YouTube blogger. And when I edit her vlog, it's really difficult for me sometimes to make them shorter. But you realize that that's when people are going to be falling off, because you could watch an hour-long video about your community, but you just need to continue to try to force yourself to make it shorter. Some videos, though, do call for a little bit longer when they're informational and they're holding on. You're getting them information. Like some of our motion graphic videos, they might end up being 2.5 minutes long. Once they get around the 3-minute range or even longer, that's when the client stopped listening to us, and we've already fought enough where we got to give up and pretend we agree. Yeah, minute and a half is key. And again, if you have a longer video, at least it's okay. But what you should do is you should break that into 2 separate messages, into 2 separate stories or 3 separate stories. So if they're talking a long time about workforce and then they talk about transportation, they talk about something else, it just needs to be broken down in bite-sized pieces. And that's good for you, because now you have more ammunition to go at with people and send out videos and to get use out of these videos. So it's just a good thing for everybody.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think this takes us to the end of our time here today. I will look for those links. If you don't mind sending those over to me, I'll make sure that we share them with everyone who is tuned in today and are registered for today's webinar. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to share some of your expertise about using video for place marketing. Thank you, Ryan and Kai.
Sure. Yeah, sure thing. Well, you all have an amazing day. Thanks for your time. Yeah, thanks for listening too. And if you have any questions, Kai's contact information there, and he's the easiest one to find around here. And his English is a lot better than mine. He's better looking. He's smarter. He's just about everything better. So he's a good guy to talk to. So you can find us. So.
Thanks so much, guys, and thanks to all of you for tuning in today. We will be in touch. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, guys.